Welcome to the deep dive. And, today we are looking at something that is it's honestly pretty wild.
Yeah, it really is. It's one of those stories that kind of catches you completely off guard.
Right. So I want you to imagine this. A small, socially awkward monkey at a local Japanese zoo.
Okay.
He's just trying to make friends, right? Just trying to fit in. And somehow, this one primate manages to raise over 63 million yen in a matter of weeks.
Which is, it's just a staggering figure.
It's unbelievable. Today, we're looking at how this single monkey essentially broke the traditional municipal funding model.
Yeah, because if you think about it, municipal facilities like the Ichikawa City Botanical and Zoological Gardens in Chiba Prefecture, they don't usually see this kind of money.
No, not at all.
Right. They usually have to fight for, just tiny fractions of a local government budget. They definitely don't generate massive capital injections through sheer public willpower.
But that is exactly what is happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
And the mission of our deep dive today is to really explore the mechanics behind this whole phenomenon.
Yeah, to figure out how they actually pulled this off.
Exactly. We are pulling our insights from an article published on July 31st, 2026 in the Japanese digital media outlet called Emigram.
It's a great piece.
It really is. So we are going to examine how a highly localized crowdfunding campaign centered entirely around this one monkey named Punch-kun somehow bypassed all the usual bureaucratic red tape.
And evolved into like a sustained, massively funded social movement.
Yeah. Okay, let's unpack this because we really need to start with the monkey himself.
Right. To understand the financial avalanche that this campaign triggered, we first have to understand the biological and honestly the social reality of Punch-kun's daily life.
Because it's not easy for him.
No, not at all. The source outlines that he is a small monkey, and his singular focus right now is just attempting to integrate into the main troupe at the zoo's Monkey Mountain.
He's on the outside looking in.
Exactly. He's currently on the outside, and he's actively working to secure a place within this highly complex hierarchy.
And when you look at the structure of macaque societies, this isn't just a matter of feeling a bit lonely on the playground, is it?
Oh, absolutely not.
Like for you listening, think about being the new kid in school trying to get a seat at the coolest, most exclusive lunch table, but with way higher stakes.
Much higher stakes.
Yeah.
These dominance hierarchies are notoriously rigid.
Right. Being an outsider in a primate troupe means you are physically marginalized, you have restricted access to food.
To warmth, to grooming networks, everything.
Yeah, everything. And the stress of constantly trying to signal your worth to the dominant members while also, trying to avoid physical aggression, it has to be immense.
It's a matter of profound survival. Primate troops operate on strict, despotic, or nepotistic lines depending on the specific species and the culture of that troop.
So you can't just walk up and say hi.
No. Integration requires constant, calculated social navigation. You have to endure rebuffs, you have to submit to higher-ranking members, and you just slowly have to prove your value to the collective.
And Punch-kun is at a distinct physical and social disadvantage here.
Right, but he is putting in that grueling work every single day.
Which brings up the big question, right?
Yeah.
It's a cute story, sure. But how does one monkey's social struggle translate into an official, massively successful financial campaign?
Well, what's fascinating here is that this is where the zoo administrators made a brilliant strategic decision.
Okay, how so?
When they realized they needed funding to improve the infrastructure of the facility, they didn't just launch, a generic campaign about zoo maintenance or animal welfare.
Which is what everyone else does.
Right. Instead, they named the project the Ganbaru Punch Supporters Project.
Oh, wow. Okay, so they directly tied it to him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That framing is the linchpin of this entire phenomenon. They anchored a structural financial need to a highly specific, emotionally resonant narrative, an underdog trying to find his place.
We should probably talk about the cultural weight of the word Ganbaru here because it's crucial.
It really is.
It translates roughly to, do your best or persevere, but that doesn't really capture the societal gravity it holds in Japan.
No, it goes much deeper than that.
Right. It's this acknowledgement of the nobility of the struggle itself. It's about enduring hardship and putting in maximum effort against insurmountable odds, often prioritizing the collective over the individual.
Precisely. And by officially tying the infrastructure campaign to Punch-kun's specific, visible struggle, the zoo completely transformed an abstract request for tax-deductible donations.
It became personal.
Exactly. It became a deeply personal mission. Donors were no longer contributing to, like, a municipal facility. They were actively funding the environment of an underdog that they deeply respected.
It completely bypasses that analytical filtering we usually apply to charitable giving. It just taps directly into our sociological drive to reward perseverance.
It really does.
But I want to analyze the actual financial trajectory of this because I feel like the numbers suggest there is something more mechanical happening here than just a viral burst of sympathy.
Oh, for sure. The timeline is really telling.
Right. So the Emigram article was published at the end of July, and it notes that the campaign guide was made public about 2.5 months prior.
Okay.
By mid-June, they had crossed 53 million yen.
And then, importantly, just weeks later, by July 26th, the fund hit approximately 63.27 million yen.
Right. They raised an additional 10 million yen in just a few weeks.
Long after the initial launch excitement should have faded.
Exactly. And I have to play devil's advocate here because in the ecosystem of crowdfunding, you typically see a massive spike on day one, right? And then it's just a long, flat tail.
Yeah, that's the standard model.
People donate to cute animal videos all the time. They get their dopamine hit of philanthropy and they move on. But this is a massive amount of money. Is it really just about Punch-kun's cuteness or is something else driving these donors?
Well, the source material gives us a very clear answer, and it comes down to donor efficacy and tangible returns on empathy.
Okay, what does that mean in practice?
Well, in early July, the zoo utilized the first wave of donation funds to complete the initial major phase of the project. They installed air conditioning in the backyard of the Monkey Mountain.
Oh, wow. That is a massive quality of life upgrade.
Huge. And it fundamentally altered the relationship between the zoo and the donors.
Because they could actually see the result.
Exactly. Usually, public funding operates like a black box, right?
Yeah.
You pay your municipal taxes or you drop money in a donation bin, and maybe a year later you see a generic annual report.
If you're lucky.
Right. But here, the transparency and speed of the transaction were just unprecedented. Donors contributed, and mere weeks later, they saw the exact monkey they were rooting for cooling off in an air-conditioned space.
Right in the middle of the summer heat.
Exactly.
The psychological reward loop there is incredibly tight. You aren't just like hoping your money helps in some vague way. You are watching it materialize into immediate structural relief for an individual you care about.
Yeah, and that builds a tremendous amount of trust in the institution handling the funds.
100%.
When a crowdfunding initiative can demonstrate that level of immediate structural impact, the donors transition from being passive sympathizers to active stakeholders.
They feel ownership.
They do.
Yeah.
They realize their contributions have direct observable power, and that realization is the catalyst that kept the momentum growing.
It became less about his cuteness and more about the collective realization of, wait, our money just fixed this problem. What else can we fix for him?
Which perfectly explains why the zoo administrators officially extended the campaign deadline.
Right. They pushed it all the way out to December 31st, 2026, or Reiwa 8 in the Japanese calendar.
Exactly. They recognized that this wasn't just a flash-in-the-pan viral moment.
No, it's totally sustainable.
Yeah. The public's desire to actively manage and improve this environment had become a genuine, sustained movement.
It's a remarkable pivot. I mean, the initial goal for the campaign was almost certainly modest, right? Aligned with standard local fundraising expectations.
Undoubtedly.
But Punch-kun's individual narrative became the engine capable of carrying the financial weight of massive facility-wide environmental improvements.
It's incredible.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting. I want to shift focus a bit to look at how this story is being documented, because the journalist who wrote this piece for Emigram, Yunshi, she provides a lens that I think perfectly explains why this resonated so deeply with the public.
Her background is highly unusual for someone covering a zoo animal, that's for sure.
It really is, and it brings a totally different analytical weight to the story.
Her professional trajectory is fascinating, and it directly informs the sociological depth of her reporting here.
Right. Let's trace this path because it's incredibly revealing. She joins the Sankei Shimbun, which is a major Japanese daily, in 2004.
Okay.
She starts out in hard news, covering incidents in Shizuoka and Sendai, and then she moves to the Tokyo Social Affairs Department.
Pretty serious beat.
Very serious.
Yeah.
And her specific assignment there, the Ministry of Health, Labor, and Welfare.
Oh, well.
Yeah, she spends her time investigating dispatched labor problems and systemic social issues.
which means her formative years as a journalist were spent parsing dense legislation and observing intense structural human struggles within the Japanese workforce.
Exactly. And her career continues to branch out from there in these wild ways. Like, she works as a courtroom sketch artist.
Wait, really? A courtroom sketch artist?
I know, observing people at their absolute most vulnerable in the justice system. And then she travels internationally. She studies as a special correspondent living in the Republic of Kiribati.
That is quite the resume.
Right.
Yeah.
And she even hosts a weekly news segment on J-Wave Radio for 3 years. Today, she's a mother of 2 who describes herself as a, quote, relaxed writer.
A relaxed writer. I love that.
She's temporarily abstaining from alcohol. She loves hot springs and fishing. And she basically operates under the motto, turn your hobby into your job.
It's a beautifully multifaceted perspective on the human condition.
It really is. It's sort of ironic, isn't it? A hardened journalist who used to sketch courtrooms and investigate labor disputes is now writing passionately about a monkey's social life.
It is, but if we connect this to the bigger picture, the crucial element is really that early focus on dispatch labor.
Right. When I read that, a massive parallel clicked for me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. In Japan's 2-tiered employment system, dispatch workers, or Haken, are essentially non-regular employees.
Right.
They are often kept on the outside of the core corporate structure. They lack the security, the benefits, and the social integration of regular employees.
They're on the periphery.
Exactly. They're constantly trying to integrate, trying to find stability, trying to be accepted as a full member of the team. But they are fighting against a rigid, systemic hierarchy designed to keep them on the outside.
That is a highly astute connection. Punch-kun is essentially the macaque equivalent of a non-regular worker.
Yes.
He is the ultimate marginalized contractor trying to secure a permanent, integrated position on Monkey Mountain.
And because Yunchi spent years dissecting the exact human equivalent of that struggle, she doesn't just look at this monkey and see a cute animal.
No, her radar is completely attuned to the dynamics of marginalization.
Right. She sees a deeply relatable, structural social struggle. She understands the gravity of what it means to be on the outside looking in, fighting a system that resists your integration.
And that context enriches her reporting immensely.
Yeah.
It elevates the piece from, like, a cute local interest story to a real commentary on social isolation.
Absolutely.
And her trained eye is so evident in how she describes the public's reaction. She observes that the donors aren't just casual fans. They have developed a deep, almost fiercely protective, parasocial relationship with Punch-kun.
Oh, they are completely invested. And the source illustrates that intensity perfectly with this incident involving some scratches.
Right, the scratches.
Recently, fans who were examining photos or visiting the zoo, they noticed small abrasions on Punch-kun.
Just minor scrapes, right.
Yeah, but the public concern escalated so quickly and so vocally that the zoo literally had to issue a formal public announcement. They had to clarify that the scratches were absolutely not bite marks from the other monkeys in the troop.
Consider the level of scrutiny required for that to happen.
It's intense.
You have thousands of people analyzing his physical state so closely that minor scrapes trigger mass anxiety.
Yeah. Their immediate collective fear was that his attempts to integrate into the despotic society of Monkey Mountain had resulted in him being physically bullied or attacked by the dominant members. It totally mirrors the protective instinct of a parent. You know, like when a kid comes home from school with a bruise.
Exactly.
You immediately want to know if it was a systemic failure. Was he attacked? Was he rejected?
Right.
And the collective sigh of relief when the zoo confirmed it was just a regular scrape and not social violence, it just proves that these donors are fundamentally invested in his emotional and physical safety. They view themselves as his guardians.
They really do.
Yeah.
And, the zoo has been incredibly adept at facilitating that emotional connection.
Yeah, they've handled it perfectly.
Rather than just constantly asking for money, they have created avenues for emotional participation. The source notes they hosted a Punch-kun message exhibition.
Oh, yeah.
And they also released a detailed growth record video.
And the reaction to that video was just visceral. The article explicitly mentions that visitors were moved to tears watching it.
Crying over a monkey?
Yes, we are talking about a local municipal facility, and people are weeping over the character arc of a macaque.
It speaks volumes about the profound sense of isolation and structural fatigue that many people experience in modern urban society.
Definitely.
When human beings see a creature striving so earnestly for connection, for acceptance, and basic security, it strikes a chord that completely transcends species.
We project everything onto him.
Exactly. We project our own labor struggles, our own social anxieties, and our own desires for belonging onto him.
What started as one monkey's quest for belonging has basically become the primary engine for improving the living environment for the entire zoo.
It has, and as Yunchi notes in her commentary, this is not a passing fad. It is a, quote, long-lasting warm circle of support.
I love that phrasing.
Right. The donors aren't just funding concrete and air conditioning. They are actively purchasing a sense of community and care that they themselves might feel is lacking in the wider world.
Which brings us to the big picture. So what does this all mean?
Well, it represents a massive paradigm shift in how we think about civic engagement and community support.
It really does. Because, for you listening right now, consider how often you tune out generic requests for civic help.
It happens all the time.
We are constantly bombarded with abstract, macro-level problems, infrastructure decay, municipal budget deficits, institutional shortfalls.
It is exhausting.
It is, and it often feels like our individual contributions are entirely meaningless in the face of those massive bureaucratic black boxes.
The human brain simply isn't wired to empathize with an institution. We cannot emotionally connect to a spreadsheet detailing municipal tax allocations for zoological facility maintenance.
Right, it's just numbers on a page. But show us one individual, one highly relatable underdog putting in the grueling daily work just to find their seat at the table, and we will completely bypass the bureaucracy.
People want to help a face, not a fund.
Exactly. The public didn't rally to fix a zoo, they rallied to protect Punch-kun. And in doing so, they accidentally funded a massive infrastructure overhaul that secured the future of the entire institution.
Which proves that the most powerful economic engine available to a public facility isn't a corporate grant.
No.
It's the collective empathy generated by a single resonant narrative.
It's amazing. This simple underdog story united thousands of people and changed an entire zoo's future.
Which leaves us with a highly provocative concept to consider.
Okay, lay it on us.
If a single monkey's personal struggle for social integration can successfully restructure the financial reality of an entire zoo, what other underfunded institutions in our society are approaching their deficits entirely backward?
Oh, that's a great question.
Right. If schools, local arts programs, or community centers stopped asking us to care about the abstract, systemic big picture and instead identified their own Punch-kun, a single, highly relatable individual whose specific struggle perfectly encapsulates the need, how much more structural change could we achieve? Wow. Perhaps the most efficient way to save a failing system is simply to give the public one distinct, visible underdog to root for.